What if I told you that beneath miles of solid ice lies a completely intact city that was never supposed to be found? A place where the lights still work, the buildings stand perfectly preserved, and evidence suggests people lived there far more recently than anyone wants to admit. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a movie plot. This is the most classified discovery of the 21st century, and the story of how it was found will change everything you think you know about our planet's hidden history. In 2019, a routine ice drilling mission in northern Greenland encountered something that made seasoned researchers question reality itself. What started as a simple climate research project became the most tightly controlled archaeological discovery in human history. Today, we're diving deep into the classified documents, eyewitness accounts, and leaked footage that reveal the existence of a subterranean metropolis that challenges everything we understand about civilization, technology, and time itself. The discovery began with Dr. Sarah Chun, a glaciologist from MIT, who was leading a team studying ancient ice cores to understand climate patterns from thousands of years ago. Her team had been drilling for weeks at a remote site designated only as Sector 7, roughly 200 miles from the nearest research station. The location was chosen specifically because satellite imagery showed unusual thermal readings beneath the ice sheet, suggesting possible geothermal activity that could provide insights into Arctic geology. On March 15th, at a depth of 847 meters, something extraordinary happened. The drill bit suddenly encountered empty space. Not just a small air pocket, which would be unusual but explainable, but a massive cavern that seemed to extend far beyond their equipment's measuring capabilities. When they lowered a camera probe down through the hole, what they captured would haunt every person who saw the footage. The camera descended through darkness for nearly 50 feet before emerging into what can only be described as an underground city. Streetlights illuminated wide boulevards lined with buildings that appear to be constructed from an unknown material that looked like a hybrid between metal and stone. The architecture was unlike anything in recorded human history, featuring sweeping curves and geometric patterns that seem to follow mathematical principles that our current engineering barely understands. But here's where the story becomes truly disturbing. The city wasn't ancient. The lights were on. Vehicles that resembled a cross between trains and aircraft sat parked along the streets, their surfaces gleaming as if they had been maintained recently. Most shocking of all, the camera captured movement. Figures walking along the pathways, too distant to make out clearly, but undeniably there. Dr. Chin immediately contacted her superiors, who ordered an immediate communication blackout. Within hours, military personnel arrived at the site and established a perimeter with a 20-mile radius. The official story given to local authorities was that the team had discovered a pocket of dangerous gases that required specialized containment protocols. In reality, what happened next was the largest covert excavation project since the recovery of the Roswell incident. Over the following months, a multinational task force assembled the most advanced drilling and excavation equipment ever deployed in an Arctic environment. The project, codenamed Operation Deep Freeze, involved representatives from 12 countries and cost an estimated $2.3 billion in undisclosed funding. The goal was simple: gain access to the city and determine exactly what they were dealing with. The first human beings to set foot in the underground metropolis were a joint team of military specialists and scientists lowered through a specially constructed access shaft in August of 2019. Their initial reports, which have been partially leaked through anonymous sources within the intelligence community, paint a picture that defies rational explanation. The city extends for approximately 12 square miles and consists of 7 distinct levels connected by a transportation system that appears to operate on magnetic levitation principles. The deepest level reaches nearly 2,000 feet beneath the surface, well below the point where normal ice formation could account for its preservation. The buildings show no signs of decay despite the extreme cold, suggesting construction materials with properties that exceed anything in our current technology. The most unsettling discovery was evidence of recent habitation. Food preparation areas contained substances that, when analyzed, showed isotopic signatures indicating they were created within the last 5 years. Living quarters contained personal items. What if everything you thought you knew about human civilization was wrong? What if beneath the frozen wastelands of our planet lay secrets that could rewrite history itself? Today, We're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary discoveries of the modern age, a find so incredible that scientists are still struggling to comprehend its implications. This isn't science fiction. This isn't fantasy. This is the real story of how researchers stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist, hidden beneath miles of ancient ice. In the summer of 2019, Dr. Sarah Chun was having what she thought would be the most boring day of her career. Armed with ground-penetrating radar equipment in the middle of nowhere, she was conducting routine geological surveys in one of the most desolate regions on Earth. The kind of work that makes you question your life choices while your breath freezes in the air before it even leaves your mouth. But what she discovered that day would transform her from an unknown researcher into one of the most talked-about scientists in the world. The readings on her equipment began showing something impossible. Massive geometric structures buried deep beneath the ice sheet. Structures that appear to be artificial, organized, and completely inconsistent with natural geological formations. At first, Chen assumed her equipment was malfunctioning. After all, what she was seeing suggested the presence of what could only be described as a city preserved in ice for thousands of years. But here's where this story takes its first shocking turn. Chen wasn't the first person to detect these anomalies. Declassified government documents from the 1950s reveal that military reconnaissance missions had been picking up similar readings for decades. The difference was that the technology of the time couldn't provide the detailed imaging that Chen's modern equipment could deliver. What those early explorers dismissed as equipment errors or natural formations were actually the first glimpses of something extraordinary. The initial discovery team that Chen assembled was small, secretive, and deliberately kept under the radar. They knew that if word leaked about what they had found, the site would be swarmed by government agencies, treasure hunters, and media crews before they could conduct proper scientific investigation. What they needed was time, careful documentation, and above all, answers to questions that seemed to challenge everything we understood about human development and ancient civilizations. The excavation process was unlike anything attempted before in polar archaeology. Working in temperatures that regularly dropped below -40 degrees, the team had developed entirely new methods for ice removal that wouldn't damage whatever lay beneath. Traditional excavation techniques were useless when dealing with ice formations that had been compacted over millennia. They needed precision, patience, and technology that had never been tested under such extreme conditions. Month after month, as layers of ice were carefully removed using heated cutting tools and specialized vacuum systems, the true scope of the discovery began to emerge. What they found wasn't just a collection of random structures. It was a planned settlement, complete with what appeared to be residential areas, communal spaces, and sophisticated infrastructure that suggested a level of organization that historians had never associated with ancient Arctic populations. The architecture itself defied explanation. The structures were built using techniques that seemed to blend stone masonry with methods that modern engineers couldn't immediately identify. Some buildings showed evidence of advanced understanding of structural engineering, with support systems that had kept them intact despite the immense pressure of accumulated ice over thousands of years. The level of preservation was extraordinary, almost as if the entire settlement had been flash frozen at a moment in time. But the real mystery wasn't just what they found. It was when these structures were built. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the settlement suggested ages that pushed back the timeline of sophisticated human habitation in polar regions by thousands of years. According to conventional historical understanding, the ancestors of modern humans shouldn't have possessed the technology or social organization necessary to build permanent settlements in such harsh environments during the time period these samples suggested. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, the lead archaeologist who joined the expedition, described her first descent into the excavated areas as one of the most surreal experiences of her professional life. Walking through corridors that had been sealed under ice longer than recorded history, she found herself face to face with evidence of daily life from a civilization that officially shouldn't exist. Cooking implements, decorative objects, and tools that showed clear signs of regular use painted a picture of a community that had thrived in one of the harshest environments on the planet. The settlement's layout revealed sophisticated urban planning. Streets were arranged in organized patterns that maximized protection from wind while allowing for efficient movement between different areas. Building placement showed clear understanding of how to create microclimates that will provide better living conditions despite the extreme external environment. Whoever designed this place understood principles of cold weather architecture that wouldn't be formally documented by modern science for centuries. One of the most intriguing discoveries was a series of interconnected underground chambers that appear to serve as a complex heating and ventilation system. The engineering behind these passages suggested knowledge of thermodynamics and air circulation that historians had never attributed to ancient polar populations. The system was so effective that even after thousands of years, areas of the settlement remained at temperatures significantly warmer than the surrounding ice. Personal artifacts found throughout the settlement told stories of individual lives lived in this frozen world. Jewelry made from materials that must have been traded from distant regions suggested these people maintained contact with civilizations thousands of miles away. Tools showed evidence of specialized craftsmanship and indicated society with enough stability and resources to support artisans who could focus on creating objects beyond basic survival necessities. The discovery team found evidence of what appeared to be workshops dedicated to specific crafts. One area contained tools and materials clearly used for metalworking, despite the challenges of maintaining fires and working with metals in sub-zero temperatures. Another section showed signs of textile production, with remnants of fabrics that displayed sophisticated weaving techniques and dye work that created complex patterns and colors. Perhaps most mysteriously, several buildings contained what could only be described as laboratories or research spaces. Tables and equipment suggested these rooms were used for activities that went beyond basic survival or even advanced craftsmanship. Chemical residues found in these areas indicate experiments or processes that modern scientists are still trying to understand. The sophistication of these operations suggested a level of scientific inquiry that challenges assumptions about intellectual development in ancient societies. The religious or ceremonial aspects of the settlement were equally fascinating. A central building contained what appeared to be astronomical observation equipment, precisely positioned to track celestial movements despite the extreme latitude. The accuracy of these instruments suggested mathematical knowledge that wouldn't be seen in other civilizations for centuries. Carvings and symbols throughout this building depicted celestial events with an accuracy that modern astronomers have confirmed as scientifically correct. Recovery efforts revealed that the settlement's inhabitants had developed unique solutions to problems that modern Arctic researchers still struggle with today. Food storage systems used natural ice formations combined with what appear to be controlled fermentation processes to preserve nutrition over long periods. Water collection and purification methods took advantage of ice melting and refreezing cycles to create consistently clean drinking supplies. The social structure of the settlement became clearer as more personal spaces were excavated. Housing varied in size and complexity, suggesting a hierarchical society, but not one based purely on wealth or power. The largest residences contained libraries or record-keeping areas, suggesting that social status might have been tied to knowledge, education, or specialized skills rather than just material accumulation. Written records, when they were finally discovered, proved to be the most challenging aspect of the entire investigation. The settlement's inhabitants had developed their own writing system, one that bore no resemblance to any known ancient script. Linguists brought in to analyze these texts found themselves dealing with a completely unknown language that seemed to have no connections to any documented linguistic families. The daily routine of the settlement's inhabitants gradually became clear through careful analysis of living spaces and work areas. These people had created a complex society that balanced individual needs with community survival requirements. Shared spaces for food preparation and social activities were balanced with private areas for families and individuals. The layout suggested a culture that valued both personal independence and collective responsibility. Evidence suggested that the settlement wasn't just surviving in a harsh environment, but actually thriving. Population estimates based on housing capacity indicated a community of several hundred people living permanently in conditions that modern survival experts consider nearly impossible for long-term habitation. The infrastructure supported not just basic survival, but comfort, creativity, and intellectual development. The timeline of the settlement's occupation raised even more questions. Archaeological evidence suggested continuous habitation over several centuries, with modifications and expansions that indicated population growth and increasing sophistication over time. This wasn't a temporary shelter or emergency refuge. This was a permanent home for generations of people who had chosen to build their civilization in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Climate data extracted from ice cores around the settlement revealed that during its period of occupation, the region experienced climate patterns significantly different from today. However, even accounting for these differences, the location would still have presented extraordinary challenges for human habitation. The success of this community suggested adaptive capabilities and technological solutions that historians are still trying to understand. The end of the settlement remains a mystery. Archaeological evidence suggests that abandonment happened relatively quickly, without signs of violence, disease, or gradual decline. Personal items were left behind in ways that suggested sudden departure rather than planned evacuation. Whatever caused the inhabitants to leave, it happened fast enough that they couldn't take many of their possessions with them. Modern technology has allowed researchers to create detailed three-dimensional maps of the entire settlement without completing full excavation of every structure. Ground-penetrating radar, combined with ice-penetrating imaging systems, has revealed the complete scope of the discovery. The settlement is larger than initially thought, with sections extending further underground and covering a greater area than any comparable archaeological site from similar time periods. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond archaeology or history. The technological and social innovations documented in the settlement provide insights that could influence modern approaches to sustainable living in extreme environments. Climate change researchers are studying the settlement's adaptation strategies for potential applications in future scenarios where human populations might need to survive in dramatically altered environmental conditions. International cooperation became essential as the scope of the discovery became clear. Teams from multiple countries brought specialized expertise in areas ranging from ice preservation to ancient linguistics. The collaborative nature of the research has created new models for how major archaeological discoveries can be studied while respecting both scientific integrity and international protocols for significant cultural findings. The discovery has also raised important questions about what other secrets might be hidden beneath ice sheets around the world. Climate change is causing rapid melting of polar ice, potentially exposing archaeological sites that have been preserved for thousands of years. The race is now on to identify and document these sites before they're damaged by exposure to modern environmental conditions. Public reaction to the discovery has been intense and varied. While scientific communities celebrate the unprecedented insights into ancient human adaptation and ingenuity, the find has also attracted attention from groups promoting alternative theories about human development and ancient civilizations. Managing public interest while maintaining scientific rigor has become an ongoing challenge for the research teams. The settlement beneath the ice represents more than just an archaeological discovery. It's proof that human ingenuity, adaptability, and determination have been driving our species to achieve the impossible for far longer than we previously understood. These people didn't just survive in conditions that would challenge modern technology. They built a thriving community that lasted for centuries. As we face our own environmental challenges and consider how human civilization might adapt to changing conditions, the lessons from this frozen city become increasingly relevant. The innovations discovered in the ice aren't just historical curiosities. They're examples of human problem-solving that could inform our approach to future challenges. The investigation continues, with new discoveries emerging regularly as excavation and analysis work progresses. Each artifact, each structural detail, each piece of evidence adds to our understanding of what humans can achieve when facing seemingly impossible circumstances. The secret city beneath the ice has already changed how we think about ancient civilizations, human adaptability, and the untold stories that might be waiting for discovery in the most unlikely places on our planet. This remarkable discovery reminds us that history is full of surprises, and that the most extraordinary human achievements might be hiding in places we've never thought to look, preserved by the very conditions that make them seem impossible to find.